Hello, this is Javier, and today we will be investigating why Judaism rejects Jesus as the Messiah. This question has sparked numerous debates and discussions throughout history. To comprehend this, we first need to grasp the concept of the Messiah in Judaism, which differs significantly from the Christian understanding. In Judaism, the term Messiah is derived from the Hebrew word Mashiach, which means anointed one. It refers to a future Jewish king from the Davidic line who will rule the Jewish people during the Messianic age. This belief is deeply rooted in the Old Testament, the sacred scriptures of the Jewish faith. The Old Testament is filled with prophecies about this future Messiah. For instance, the book of Isaiah speaks of a leader who will establish an era of peace and righteousness. In the book of Jeremiah, the prophet foretells a time when a righteous branch from David's lineage will emerge, executing justice and righteousness on the earth. Unlike Christianity, Judaism does not view the Messiah as a divine being, but rather as a human leader who will accomplish specific tasks. These tasks include bringing about Jewish self-rule in the land of Israel, rebuilding the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and gathering all Jews back to the land of Israel. Judaism also believes that the Messiah will usher in a period of universal peace and understanding, where the knowledge of God fills the earth. This vision is dramatically different from the Christian understanding of the Messiah, which views Jesus as the Son of God who came to save humanity from sin. The concept of the Messiah in Judaism is not just about a future leader, but it's also a symbol of the Jewish people's enduring hope for a better world. It's a belief in a future where peace, justice, and righteousness rule, a world where all people acknowledge and serve one God. Therefore, understanding the Jewish concept of the Messiah is fundamental to understanding why Judaism does not accept Jesus as the Messiah. It's a matter of differing interpretations and expectations, deeply rooted in the scriptures and traditions of each faith. Let's delve into the origins of Judaism to understand this concept better. Judaism is one of the oldest monotheistic religions, dating back nearly 4,000 years. It's a faith steeped in ancient traditions and teachings, a faith that began with a man named Abraham. Born in the city of Ur in Mesopotamia, Abraham is considered the father of Judaism. God established a covenant with Abraham, promising him that he would be the father of a great nation. This nation, God declared, would be blessed, and through it, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. This covenant is a cornerstone of Jewish belief, signifying a special relationship between the Jewish people and God. From Abraham, the lineage of Judaism continued through his son Isaac, and then to Isaac's son Jacob, later named Israel. The descendants of Jacob, the Israelites, are the people who would form the nation promised to Abraham. A key figure in the history of Judaism is Moses, a man chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. This event, known as the Exodus, is a seminal moment in Jewish history. Moses received the Torah, including the Ten Commandments, from God on Mount Sinai. These laws form the basis of Jewish law and have a profound influence on Jewish life and thought. In the centuries that followed, the Jewish people experienced periods of prosperity and periods of persecution. They built a temple in Jerusalem, were exiled to Babylon, returned and rebuilt their temple only to see it destroyed again. Throughout these trials, the Jewish people held on to their faith and their identity, their history marked by a unique relationship with God, a journey from slavery to freedom, and a persistence in the face of adversity shaped their expectations of a Messiah, a Messiah who would not only rescue them from their struggles, but also fulfill the promises made to Abraham. With this foundation, we can begin to understand the Jewish expectation of the Messiah. In Judaism, the Messiah is not divine, but a human chosen by God. This is a fundamental concept that informs the Jewish view of the Messiah. The Old Testament, or Tanakh, outlines this expectation of a worldly figure chosen by God who will bring about an era of peace and understanding. The Jewish Messiah, often referred to as the Mashiach, is expected to fulfill a set of specific prophecies. Notably, these include the ingathering of the Jewish exiles from the corners of the globe, the rebuilding of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and the ushering in of a messianic era of peace and understanding. This era is characterized by universal knowledge of God, a time when the earth will be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea. This vision of the Messiah diverges significantly from the Christian perception of Jesus as the Messiah. In Christianity, Jesus is seen as a divine figure, the Son of God who came to earth to save humanity from sin. This notion of divine intervention contrasts sharply with the Jewish expectation of a human Messiah, who, though chosen by God, is not divine, but rather a leader and guide towards a better world. Jewish Messiah is also expected to be a descendant of King David through the lineage of his son Solomon. This lineage is seen as crucial because God promised David that his descendants would rule Israel in an everlasting kingdom. This is another point of divergence with the Christian perception of Jesus, as the New Testament does not provide a clear lineage from Solomon to Jesus in all four Gospels. Matthew starts with Abraham and works forwards, while Luke works back in time from Jesus to Adam. The lists of names are identical between Abraham and David, whose royal ancestry affirms Jesus' messianic title, Son of David, but differ radically from that point. Matthew has 27 generations from David to Joseph, whereas Luke has 42, with almost no overlap between them or with other known genealogies. They also disagree on who Joseph's father was. Matthew says he was Jacob, while Luke says he was Heli. Furthermore, the Jewish expectation of the Messiah is tied to a specific time, a time when all people will recognize the God of Israel as the one true God. This time has not yet come, according to Jewish belief, and therefore the Messiah has not yet arrived. So, why don't Jews accept Jesus as this Messiah? Here it is important to note that the kingdom of Israel started after Solomon's son Rehoboam was rejected. After Solomon's death, the 10 northern tribes rejected the Davidic line, refusing to accept Solomon's son Rehoboam, and instead chose Jeroboam as king and formed the northern kingdom of Israel. The southern tribes of Judah and Benjamin remained loyal to the house of David, and this kingdom came to be known as the Kingdom of Judah. All subsequent monarchs of Judah, except Athaliah, are said to be direct descendants of David. Luke and Matthew differ in the generations, but the omission of generations could be because Matthew's book could be much more selective and dynastic, even though Luke clearly mentions Jesus as a descendant of Rehoboam, the grandson of David. Modern scholarship tends to see the genealogies of Jesus as theological constructs rather than factual history. Family pedigrees would not usually have been available for non-priestly families, and the contradictions between the two lists are seen as clear evidence that these were not based on genealogical records. It appears that Jesus was questioned on whether or not he came from the right great-grandparents. In any case, Judaism seems more concerned about dynasty and lineage than Christianity. The Jewish rejection of Jesus as the Messiah is rooted in the interpretation of the Old Testament prophecies. The Jewish perspective on Jesus is deeply tied to their understanding of the Old Testament, which has been passed down through generations and is intrinsic to their faith. In Judaism, there's a strong belief that the Messiah, or Mashiach in Hebrew, is yet to come. This Messiah is expected to fulfill specific prophecies outlined in the Old Testament. Prophecies such as those found in the book of Isaiah chapter 11, where it speaks of a descendant of King David who will rule with wisdom and justice and bring peace and unity to all nations. When we look at Jesus from the Jewish perspective, they do not believe he fulfilled these prophecies. For instance, during Jesus' lifetime, there was no era of global peace, nor was there a unification of all nations. Furthermore, although Jesus is often referred to as a descendant of King David in the New Testament, the Jewish faith places significant emphasis on paternal lineage, and according to Jewish tradition, Jesus' lineage from David is traced through Joseph, who is not his biological father. Another key prophecy refers to the rebuilding of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, as mentioned in the book of Ezekiel. The Jewish faith holds that the Messiah will oversee the reconstruction of this temple, which to this day remains unbuilt. Thus, from the Jewish standpoint, Jesus did not fulfill this prophecy either. However, it is important to note that Judaism is not a monolithic religion. There are varying interpretations and beliefs within the Jewish community. Some Jews may have different perspectives on Jesus and the prophecies of the Old Testament. These differences reflect the rich diversity and depth of thought within Judaism, making it a complex and fascinating faith to explore. But Judaism is not a monolithic religion, and there are different perspectives within it. Judaism has several branches, each with their own interpretations and beliefs. Let's delve into these main branches to gain a deeper understanding of their views on the Messiah and Jesus. Firstly, we have Orthodox Judaism, the oldest form of Judaism, maintaining a strict adherence to traditional Jewish law and rituals. Orthodox Jews believe in a future Messiah as outlined in the Old Testament, and they do not accept Jesus as this Messiah. Next, we have Conservative Judaism. This branch emerged in the mid-19th century as a middle ground between Orthodox and Reform Judaism. While conservative Jews maintain many traditional practices, they also embrace modernity and change, like their Orthodox counterparts. Conservative Jews await a future Messiah and do not recognize Jesus in this role. Reform Judaism, originating in Germany in the late 18th century, is the most liberal branch of Judaism. Reform Jews focus more on ethical teachings rather than ritual laws, and they do not actively await a Messiah. While they respect Jesus as a historical figure, they do not view him as the Messiah. Lastly, there's Reconstructionist Judaism, the youngest branch of Judaism. Founded in the United States in the 20th century, Reconstructionist Jews see Judaism as an evolving religious civilization. They reject the idea of a personal Messiah, instead envisioning a messianic age of peace and justice for all. Jesus, in this context, is not considered the Messiah. These different branches of Judaism not only highlight the diversity within the Jewish faith, but also underline the complex relationship between Judaism and Jesus. Orthodox and conservative Jews anticipate a future Messiah, while Reform and Reconstructionist Jews focus on an era of peace and justice. All branches, however, do not recognize Jesus as the Messiah. Understanding these differences can help us understand the complex relationship between Judaism and Jesus. Today, the majority of Jews continue to await the coming of the Messiah. This belief, deeply rooted in the teachings of the Old Testament, remains a cornerstone of Jewish theology. The concept of the Messiah in Judaism is one of a human, not divine figure. He is expected to be a descendant of King David, who will rule Israel during an era of global peace, also known as the Messianic Age. This vision of the Messiah is drawn from various passages in the Old Testament. For instance, the book of Isaiah speaks of a future leader of Israel who will uphold justice and righteousness. The prophet Jeremiah also foretells of a righteous branch of David's line who will execute justice and righteousness on earth. In contrast to these prophecies, Jesus, according to Jewish thought, did not fulfill these messianic expectations. He did not bring about an era of global peace, nor did he establish a sovereign Jewish state. Moreover, the idea of a divine Messiah contradicts the Jewish interpretation of the Old Testament, which emphasizes the absolute oneness of God. The concept of the Messiah as a divine figure, as seen in Judaism, is viewed as a radical departure from Jewish teachings. This is a primary reason why Jesus is not accepted as the Messiah in Judaism. Rather, Jewish tradition maintains that the true Messiah has yet to arrive. While there is a minority within Judaism, namely Messianic Jews, who accept Jesus as the Messiah, they are often viewed as standing outside mainstream Jewish thought. Their beliefs, while valid for them, are not representative of the beliefs held by the majority of Jews. In understanding Judaism's rejection of Jesus as the Messiah, we can appreciate the distinct identity of this ancient religion. It is a faith that continues to shape its vision of the future based on the teachings of the Old Testament, awaiting the day when the prophesied Messiah will bring peace and justice to the world. Judaism's rejection of Jesus as the Messiah is an example to its unique interpretation of the Old Testament. We've journeyed through the complex tapestry of Jewish belief systems, tracing back to the origins of Judaism and exploring the various perspectives within this diverse religion. We've discussed how the Jewish understanding of the Messiah is fundamentally different from Christian interpretations. The Jewish Messiah, as prophesied in the Old Testament, is an earthly figure, a human leader who will bring about an era of peace and prosperity. This contrasts with the Christian view of Jesus as a divine savior who offers spiritual salvation. We've also looked at the different types of Judaism, each with its unique perspective on the Messiah: Orthodox Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Reform Judaism. Each of these branches interprets the Old Testament in its way, and thus varies in its views on Jesus as the Messiah. The Orthodox Jews, for instance, staunchly uphold the traditional Jewish interpretation of the Messiah and consequently reject Jesus in this role. Conservative Jews, while maintaining a commitment to Jewish law, are more open to varying interpretations. Reform Jews, on the other hand, often emphasize ethical aspects of Judaism and may have more liberal views on the Messiah. We also touched on the current beliefs in Judaism. While there is a broad spectrum of beliefs within Judaism, a common thread is the adherence to the Old Testament and the Talmud, Jewish law and ethics. The belief in a Messiah, while important, is not the central tenet of Judaism. It's more about living a righteous life, following Jewish law, and making the world a better place. By exploring these concepts, we can gain a deeper understanding of Judaism and its relationship with Jesus. The rejection of Jesus as the Messiah is not a rejection of his teachings or his value as a spiritual figure. Instead, it's a reflection of a different interpretation of the Old Testament and a different expectation for the Messiah. And this, in many ways, encapsulates the complicated religious ways of understanding certain books. I did a lot of research while creating this video. I didn't know Judaism is not even 0.2% of the world's population, as I thought all the Jews were Judaists. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe.